Now to control your breathing. So we're going to breathe in through our noses and breathe out through our noses. So breathe in and feel the air going into your lungs and filling you up with air, and then feel the air going out as you empty your lungs as the air goes out. So feel the air going in, feel the air going out, feel the air coming in, feel the air going out. Feel the air coming in, feel the air going out. Feel the air coming in, feel the air going out. Okay, typical Spanish desserts. Now, the richness of all these wonderful desserts that come from all over Spain. Let's visualize and think of the flavor of these sweet, flavorful desserts, starting with, in Asturias, they're tocinitos de cielo. Little pieces of heaven has translated what they are. It's like a creme caramel with lots of egg yolks, and they're absolutely delicious. Think and visualize that. Then if we go to País Vasco and think of the torrijas they make there from cake. So torrijas are this like eggy bread that everybody eats at Easter. And when it's made with this special bread, they're sweeter and delicious. Then if we can think of going up to Cantabria, and the kind of quesada. It's a kind of cheesy egg pudding, and it's really delicious. Not too sweet, but delicious. So think of that. Now, if we can think of from Melilla, they make a thing called chavaquia, which are fried strips of pastry, which are then dusted with sesame seeds and honey. Crunchy, tasty. Think of the flavour of that. Now if we go up to Galicia, think of the Tarta de Santiago, which is that lovely almond cake, which has its distinctive cross on the top of it, done with icing sugar. And then we can go from there to Rioja and think of those fardalejos, which are kind of an Arabian pastry. It's flaky pastry filled with marzipan in a rectangular shape. Whoa, delicious. Think of the taste of that, all crunchy. And then if we can go now to Nevada and think of those sweets with pine nuts on. Think of the flavour of those sweets. Think of the flavour of those pine nuts. Now we can go up to Catalonia and think of the crema catalana, which is that lovely creamy custard with the sugar caramelized on top, which crunches as you put your spoon in. Think of that, visualize that, have the flavor of that. Then if we can think of going from there up to Castilla y León and the typical almendras garapiñadas, which are those caramelized almonds, crunchy and sticky. Imagine those and the flavor of those. Now if we can go from there to Andalusia. At Christmas we eat lots of polvorones, which are those very crumbly almond cakes which just melt in your mouth. Think of that flavour of almonds and crumbs all over the place. Now if we go from there to Asturias, where they have very rich milk and cream, which they use to make their rice pudding. Visualize the rice pudding from Asturias and the flavour. Now if you can think of gerlache, which is something from Aragon, similar to what we'd call nut brittle, so like an almond nut brittle. And now, see if you can visualize and think of the flavour of chocolate pancakes from Ceuta, oozing with chocolate. Now if we can think of the summer when it's really hot. When it's really hot, Valencia is the place to go and get a glass of horchata. It looks like milk, but doesn't taste anything like it. It's made from nutsedge plant, which gives it that lovely sweet nutty flavour. And when it's ice cold, it's the most refreshing drink in the world. Think of the flavour of horchata and visualise it in your mind. Now if we can go to Castilla-La Mancha and think of the marzipans that they do there, so sweet and tasty. Now, typical at Easter are the torrijas. In Madrid, in every bar you find torrijas. Visualize piles and piles of torrijas and think of the taste of the torrijas. So sweet, with that lovely flavour. And then, if we can go from to the Canary Islands, where all the bananas come from, they make a lovely banana cake. Think of the bananas of the Canaries in this cake and the flavour of bananas. Visualise that. Now we're going to Navarra, and we're going to think of the torrijas that they make in Navarra. They are eggy bread. Everybody has a different recipe, but they're all as delicious. Now, if we can go from there to País Vasco, and that lovely walnut cake they make. So the crunchiness of the walnuts in the cake. Visualize that. Think of the flavour of walnuts. Crunching. If we go to Castilla de León, y León del Florenos. Florenos are those beautiful light batter fried with a special iron to make it in the shape of a flower. And they look so delicate and so crunchy with a covering of sugar. They're difficult to make, but they're delicious, well worth the trouble. Now in Valencia they're famous for turrón. Turrón, we eat a lot of it at Christmas. It's the almond type fudge that everybody eats. Delicious. Now if we go from there, let's go to Catalonia and think of the panellets, the almendras, which are the little balls made with batata and almonds, covered with pine nuts, and in the oven with they're baked, and so they're crunchy on the outside and almondy on the inside. Delicious. Visualize and think of the flavour of those panellets. Now, if we go to Murcia, we can sample, visualize this, the fruit salad from Murcia. Fruit salad of pineapple and melon and cactus, grapes and strawberries all mixed together, all those flavours. Think of the flavours, think of the fruit salad. If we go to La Mancha, Castilla de la Mancha, the bizcocho manchega, torta en remojo, which is that cake with delicious. And then from there we can go to Banuelos de Calabaza. Picture that in your mind. These puffs of pumpkin, let's say, the sweet flavour of the pumpkin, and this kind of puff balls of dough that have been fried. And Valencia is where they come from. Visualize those and think of the flavour. Now think of the flavour. Almendras garapiñadas, which was the almonds which have been slow roasted in sugar until it turns to toffee, and they're hot and tasty, crunchy and sticky almonds from Nevada. Now, if you can picture in your mind pan de higo, which is a type of bread made from figs. It doesn't actually have any bread in it, but lots of figs. Absolutely delicious flavour of figs. And then from them we go to Andalusia. So see if you can visualize and think of the flavour of these cortadillos dulces de cabello de ángel. These are kind of like a biscuit sandwich filled with melon jam. So sweet. Think of that. And then if we go up to Catalonia, try and visualize the pa de pesec, which is very light as a cloud. The sponge is very, very light. Think of that. Also think of those coques de San Juan that they make for St. John's night, similar to Rosquilla de Reyes, with lots of Lots of caramelized fruit on top, crunchy base. So from there, let's try and visualize and think of the flavor of those mostachones, which are kind of some spongy biscuits from Valencia. Then from there, let's try and visualize the taste of those sobaos paseos, which come from Cantabria, which are a delicious sponge made with all the best ingredients. Now, if we can visualize the type of turrón they make in the Canaries, turrón de gofia, which is like a type of fudge made with molasses, so it's dark and it's sticky and it's tasty. Think of the flavour of that. And now if we go to Madrid, the typical rosquillas, which are like donut shaped, I suppose would call them. Some of them have icing on the top, some of them have nothing on the top, but some of them are called tontas y listas, so silly and clever. The ones which are the silly ones are the lightest ones because they're just full of air. Maybe that's why they call them tontas. Then we go to the Canaries for pan de papas, which is like a bread made from potatoes. It's just like a sweet potato bread. Think of that. Imagine the flavour of that. Now, if you can think of the flavour and try and find the image in your head of an ensaimada, which are those flaky pastry spirals with sugar on the top. They're so light for breakfast from the Balearic Islands. Now from there we go to a type of pancake, filaos de tortitas dulces, which are like pancakes from Galicia. Think of those, visualize those, and think of their flavour. If we go to Castilla y León, think of the menticados de Astorga, which are very crumbly almondy flavoured cakes, and they're similar to the polvorones that we tried at Christmas. So now if we can visualise and think of in Andalusia, where the nuns make the very rich yemas de San Leonardo, which are very rich strings of egg yolk with sugar. Delicious. And then from there we go to Extremadura for the roscas piñonati. So that with lots of pine nuts mixed with, it's like a pine nut brittle in the shape of a ring, crunchy and sticky and sweet. Then if we go to either Valencia or Catalonia for the monas de Pascua, some of them are so elaborate. Think and visualize those monas de Pascua cakes with Easter eggs on top, or shapes of your favourite cartoon characters. Just think of the flavour of all that chocolate. And then if you think of the hojaldre de mamia, flaky pastry. This is from País Vasco. Picture this in your mind. Flaky pastry filled with either apple filling. Think of the flavour. The apple flaky pastry. And now in Aragon, those delicious crystallized fruits that come in the little wooden boxes, some covered with chocolate. Something else. Picture that. Think of the flavour of those crystallized fruits. Then if we think of the Balearic Islands, where they make those empanadillas dulces, the sweet little packages can be of anything you can imagine, sweet little turnovers. So now think of the flavour and see if you can visualise those yemas de Avila, which are the famous sweet egg yolks made by the nuns. The flavour of cinnamon and sugar. Delicious. Think on that. And now if we think of Castilla de la Mancha and those fried pastries which are covered with honey, very sweet and crunchy pastry. Think of the flavour, picture it in your mind. Now we come to alfajores, which maybe came from Argentina originally, or somebody copied the idea. In Andalusia they have these which are like biscuits, two biscuits together with some filling in the middle. Delicious. Then we have in Cantabria, think of that, in the shape of a tie. They call them corbatas de unquera, and the flaky pastry, really crunchy, flaky pastry looking like ties. So thinking on that. Now visualize chocolate con porras y churros. So typical in Madrid. Breakfast with chocolate and these tasty fritters. So now think of peaches done in wine from Aragon. Think of them. Picture it in your mind. Think of the sweet flavour, a touch of wine. And then, if you can think of that mixture of fruits in a fruit salad from Rioja. Think of the flavours, all those different fruits mixing together. The flavour of those fruits in the picture there, the colours of the fruit salad. Now we're going to relax. So, relax your feet. That's it. Relax your legs. Okay. Relax your hips. Now relax your body, the trunk of your body. Relax your arms. Relax your neck. Relax your jaw. Relax your lips. Relax your eyes. Relax your forehead. Now, imagine that your head is like a balloon and it's floating in the air. So imagine this balloon, your head, is floating. It's weightless. It doesn't weigh a thing. It's floating. It's floating. Think to yourself, my head is floating. My head is floating. My head is floating like a balloon in the air. My head is floating. My body is like a balloon. My arms, my legs, my body's like a balloon, weightless, doesn't weigh a thing. Like a balloon, my body is weightless, it's floating. My body is floating, floating, it's floating, it's floating. My body is floating, doesn't weigh a thing. My body is weightless. It's floating, it's floating, it's floating. My body is floating. My feet up don't weigh a thing. My legs don't weigh a thing. My hips don't weigh a thing. My body doesn't weigh a thing. My arms don't weigh a thing. My neck doesn't weigh a thing. My jaw doesn't weigh a thing. My lips don't weigh a thing. My eyes don't weigh a thing. My forehead doesn't weigh a thing. Weightless, totally weightless. And I'm floating. You're floating in the air like a balloon. My head is like a balloon. My body is like a balloon. Weightless, weightless, floating, floating. My body is floating, floating. My feet are weightless. My legs are weightless. My hips, my body, my arms, my neck, my jaw, my lips, my eyes, my forehead, all weightless. They don't weigh a thing. I'm floating, floating, floating. I'm floating like a balloon in the air. Like a balloon in the air, I'm floating. I don't weigh a thing. My body is just floating. Floating, floating, floating. My body is floating. My legs don't weigh a thing. My feet don't weigh a thing. My hips don't weigh a thing. My body, my arms, my neck don't weigh a thing. My jaw doesn't weigh a thing. My lips don't weigh a thing. My eyes don't weigh a thing. I'm floating, floating, floating. Like a balloon floating in the air. floating in the air, weightless, floating, floating, floating. My body is 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 floating. Floating. My body is floating. My body is floating. My body is floating. My body is floating.